Thank the gentleman. It's my understanding that Mr. Miller has one additional question for the witnesses. In order to get him to the airport, instead of having a second round, we're just going to have this last question and then closing comments. So, Mr. Miller's recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate you doing this. My question is, Dr. Miron, you can respond to this. You just touched upon it. We can all argue back and forth about what state and federal regulations do to charter schools, but what's happening in terms of accountability and quality with the EMOs, the administrators of these programs that are controlling or supporting or providing services to an additional number, an increasingly number of charter schools?
The process of accountability is worsened now with the private management, in part because the definition of what is proprietary or not. I'll just give you an example. We've sent out a sample of EMO-operated charter schools in the nation, 424. We've sent out a request last September for a copy of the contract between the Public Charter School Board and the EMO, the private management company. And then in the spring, after we got only a 2% response rate, we got sent out formal FOIA request. And now we're getting up to about 20 to 20% response. But it's really fascinating, the responses from many of the schools, that they don't need to share this information because they're private. Or we get responses from the...
I thought these are managing public charters.
They are legally public schools, but these are the range of responses we get.
Well, how does the school board, or maybe Ms. Rowe, you want to comment? How does the school board or an authorizer give away that kind of authority?
Thank you, Mr. Miller. I would like the opportunity to address that question, and I think that speaks to the quality of the authorizer, because certainly charter...
Well, that speaks to the quality of the right of the public to know. If you would get this information, in theory, if you went down and looked at the contract between a local school and the school board or the district.
That's correct, and I believe it's the responsibility of the authorizer to ensure that the schools that it sponsors are following the law.
Mr. Miron, your testimony is that you don't know yet because you haven't.
Well, one of the things, and not only is it's convoluted now, especially with many times the facilities, the teaching force, other components of the school are privately owned and operated. So you still have a public board, but when like in Michigan, most of the facilities and equipment, most of it belongs to the private company.
So you sort of contract it out.
They contract it out, the board contracts it out. But one of the problems, coming to your question on accountability, not only is it difficult because it's gone behind a private veil, but also because now the public, even the Public Charter School Board that's contracted with the management company, is dependent on the EMO to share information, to provide information. So it's not like, it's kind of like, we're going to ask Coca-Cola how their product's doing, and they're going to tell us it's great. Well, when the charter school board asks the management company, how are we doing? How do we know? We have a private interest there that has a contract to operate the school, but they're the ones, because they're operating the school, that are also going to provide that information. So it complicates the notion of accountability when we're dependent on these private groups to report on the performance of these of the schools that they operate.
How do you break through that, Ms. Rowe?
When we look at the charter school and their operations, and they're subject to open meeting law, we also, in our contracts, have recently added a language in a paragraph that says our charter board members, our officers, directors, or members or partners of that corporation have a duty of care in the oversight of those schools. They need to take the ownership and the decision-making that they have the ability and the responsibility very seriously.
What are you telling me? I don't understand what you're telling me.
In looking at who the charter holder is, the state, or in our case, the State Board for Charter Schools, has a contract with an entity, and that entity has a responsibility to meet the requirements of the law and their charter contract in providing a quality academic program for its schools. Part of that is disclosure of public records and sharing information, and I'm surprised at the level of the challenge in receiving the information. We don't generally find that in Arizona.
So they don't have your testimony would be they don't have the rights to withhold the information that Mr. Miron has touched into, and they can't have a contract that's inconsistent with the language that you just suggested?
I wouldn't believe so, no.
Okay. Mr. Maron, any final comment before the light? You better be fast.
Well, I mean, obviously, I have concerns about the accountability part and its and the dependency on these private managers, because many of the school boards act in good faith. But again, when we have executive authority by a private group operating the whole school, including selection of, recruitment of students, hiring on staff, and so forth, it's very difficult for that public board to have access to that information because it has to be collected and reported by the management company itself.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.